Welcome to TCLN Network, where news education is our elevation and leadership is the gold. Now let's talk about it. Foreign influence and political manipulation. There's a lot going on, a lot on the internet, AI, images, all kinds of stuff, right? You know how I like to do it right here on TCLN. U.S. lawmakers sounding the alarm on foreign influence and political manipulation. You know this is politics season. Now, of course, people are running for U.S. Senate right here in Texas and abroad, but also people are voting for other things that are going on too within their different states. And I just want to remind you about this subject called manipulation. Manipulation is a topic that everybody in their mind think, okay, you don't have to tell me about that. I know, and I'm being manipulated. We do sometimes, and we do, because we deal with it within family, we deal with it in corporate America, we deal with it in all arenas, right? On our jobs, everywhere you can think of. But sometimes we may not think about it when it's coming from sources outside of us, right? We're so busy looking at all the political vibe that's on the inside, bipartisan, this person, that person, gay versus straight, black versus white, the borders, everything you can think of, this politician versus that politician. And there's so much going on. And we know that to be distraction, right? What better way to distract the people and then give them false narratives from the outside to the inside, right? So we're going to talk about that a little bit today. I want you to stay with me right here on TCLN. We're going to get into a little bit of facts and a little bit of data. But most of all, we're just going to talk about manipulation. It's very, very important. You need to have if you're going to be leaders and entrepreneurs, these are skills, guys, that you must have, you need to have. So why not use TCLN Network to practice this? So when you get where you going, and you working these things out, these are tools and principles that I teach right here from mainstream news. I take those stories, I break them down so that we can really understand leadership development. I cover leaders so that we can understand what are we learning from them? How is that going to make us better? And how are we applying that to what we want to do, our work, our goals, our dreams? That's what TCLN Network is all about, because you're not powerless. You're not powerless. Sometimes we're just misled. And when we're misled, if we get clarity, that's going to make us have what? Power. And then power acted on is going to make us have what? Progress. That's what we want to do, child. It could be anyone, right? But you know someone. Of course, that someone's not you, right? That's why you're a thinker, shaker, mover. You're right here on TCLN Network. That's not you, is it? Yeah, right. That's all of us, child. At one point in time in our lives, that's all of us. So let's get started with what we're talking about. We're talking about AI images being used by foreign lands to influence our narratives in the United States of America and what we can do about something like that, right? Thank you for tuning in today. I'm Abike. I like to educate to elevate so that we go from situations to solutions. But more than that, I love to take the news that is in mainstream media and make it applicable to us. Most of us are either entrepreneurs or we're either leaders or aspiring. Either way, we need the tools to stay abreast with the current events that are in our nation. And that's what I do right here at TCLN Network. To stop and just think about this and imagine this for a moment. A foreign organization funds a nonprofit. That nonprofit pushes the narrative. An AI-generated image goes viral supporting that narrative, and you end up sharing it, thinking that you are defending the truth. Are you being informed, or are you being engineered? Now, I know that's something to think about because many of us have done that. We share things, we've spoken about things, we've done all kind of things, right? Let's be honest, we have. We've done all kind of stuff, guys. And as we grow and we become wiser, some of the stuff we look back over and say, I thought that was all apples and oranges. I thought that was the basket, right? And you learn that it was false fruit and you either had to go back and self-correct or you had to learn from the lesson and you kind of keep going, right? Well, that's kind of what's going on in our nation today. All of this stuff is being pushed because there's so much distraction that's on the inside in the United States of America. And the tool that's being used is called manipulation. Now, we know that manipulation is the umbrella. And then under that umbrella, you got fear, you got deceit, you got everything you can think of, right? You got control, you got devices, you got tools, antics. You understand what I'm saying? But the umbrella in this case and what we're talking about is going to be manipulation. Now, with manipulation comes perception. The whole reason of being manipulated is it has to do with influencing your perception, the way that you perceive things, the way that you taste, smell, think, move, the way that you feel. You understand what I'm saying? All of that is perception. And we have to really get back to the basics, because sometimes we are flowing in perception instead of flowing in reality. In other words, what is real? Like we just literally kind of like living in other people's perception. It's so much information coming at us. Social media, the regular television, movie shows, entertainment, music, influencers, stars talking to us, our favorite people that we like. And it's just so much information. And I'll just give an example. Do you know how it is like when you're getting ready to make a decision and then all of a sudden, so many voices you've heard. You heard your mama voice, daddy voice, this person voice, that person voice, internet voice, that voice. And you about to get ready to make a decision and all these voices are just juggling, right? This person said that, this one said that, this one said that, this one said, and it is clouding up your personal judgment to make a good sound judgment. Well, that's basically what's going on when it comes to these types of influences. You understand what I'm saying? It's so much confusion, so much conflict in information that when you actually get ready to make a sound decision and to think, it's hard to think because all that stuff is clouded up in there and that's all you can hear. And that's basically what is happening when it comes to politics and corporate America, anything you can think of in decision making. So that's why we have to be careful of all this information that's coming at us, because it's all this perception, right? It's not flowing from yourself. It's this perception and perceptions that have been created for you, right? Histories, societies have fallen not just because of armies, but they have fallen because truth became negotiable. When truth becomes negotiable, power becomes manipulatable. Did I say that right? Is that a word? But anyway, when people start negotiating truth instead of standing on truth, what ends up happening is that now power becomes distorted. And when it becomes distorted, you can manipulate it. Do you understand that? Power is nothing more but than the ability to think, reason in a good sound way. That's what power is. That's what influence is. If you're not careful, influence can be witchcraft. Someone trying to control you and manipulate you. But if it's used in the right way, it could be used to motivate you or to inspire you in a good path and in a good way, right? So remember, these are just tools. When these vices are used in the wrong way, they become distorted. And when they become distorted, power becomes distorted and it becomes manipulated. So let me give a little bit more about this situation and these news facts. The House Ways and Means Committees held a hearing examining foreign actors using nonprofit channels to fund their means. You understand that? Media outlets, including PBS NewsHour, are reporting on AI-generated imagery eroding trust. AI tools can now generate hyper-realistic political scenes in minutes. Nonprofit status can shield funding transparency depending on its structure. Now, the problem with that is that it's easy, like I said, to recognize manipulation. A lot of times when they come to friends and family and co-workers and all that kind of stuff, right? The people that you are around. But it's kind of difficult to kind of separate some of this emotion versus understanding the difference between I love my favorite influencer, or I love my favorite politician, or I love my favorite star, and I just love them. versus separating being emotionally manipulated. And the problem, the conflict, the confusion is basically this. People think that manipulation looks obvious. Well, like I said, in some cases it do. Sometimes when it comes to policy language, professional branding, viral emotional imagery, grassroots activism, independent research, sometimes it may not be that obvious. Let me give you an example. I remember, about my court situation and me going to court and all that kind of stuff. You've seen it up there. 2 of them have already been handled. I'm still waiting on one. My incident that I had with the police and what ended up happening and what those police officers done. I explained that to you in previous videos, right? But what I noticed that even in law and policy, when you're not careful, it could be manipulated, right? So when I was sitting before the attorney, it was about 2 something in the morning. I was sitting before the attorney, they come to the holdings and they talk to you and everything. And I remember she was reading this paperwork and they'll ask you, can you afford an attorney at the time or can you not? And you will basically say yay or nay, and then they'll say want to be appointed to you if you want one. You know the spiel, right? If you ever been there. Anyway, so what I noticed that something was in that paperwork that said indigent, declared indigent. And so I specifically asked her, what does that word mean in law term, indigent? And she got a little nervous, because she could see that I was a little bit aware. So she got a little nervous and she got to moving around. And I remember leaving from her presence and I went to go research the word poor, research the word, indigent. What was the difference? There's a difference between you lacking something. You lack financial means. You don't have a job at the time or whatever the situation may be, and you cannot afford to pay for that attorney at that time versus you being an indigent. So when you look up the word indigent, it means a complete total. You understand what I'm saying? And when you look up the word poor, it means lack, right? So when you look at these words, they kind of overlap, but for the most part, they're totally 2 different words. And when someone says declare, now, if any of you guys ever been to church and you ever know, what it is that I'm going to name it, I'm going to claim it, I'm going to declare it, I'm going to speak it, so you guys know what this declaration thing is, right? So when you look up the word declaration, to declare, you are saying and you are stating that this is so. And I remember thinking to myself, absolutely not. And that is a law that needs to be changed. And when I say law, I'm really talking about in legal stance, when they put these paperworks together and these documents together and they are saying these things, right? You have no right to declare someone totally just indigent. Indigent is totally different from you don't have a job at the time and you don't have finances at the time. You understand what I'm saying? So that's what I mean by being very careful of what you are being told and what you're being fed, right? And making sure that you know what's important for your life and what's spoken for your life and towards your life, right? During this time of all this conflict, AI and these foreign entities that are influencing American thought, you have citizens that can't tell what is real. That's true. You have some people, they like you will see it up there, like people be on an AI thing and they be like, yeah. And somebody has to break in and say, you do know that this is AI, right? Because people be going with it. Like hundreds of people, they just going with it, right? In the comment section. Everything looks legitimate. It begins to look legitimate. It begins to look like the norm. And everyone begins to claim more authority. Everybody. Nobody wants to think that they're saying something wrong. Nobody don't. Everybody wants to think that I'm moral and I'm giving you the spiel, except those who intentionally just try to deceive you. Now, I want you to think about something. I want you to think about the Olympics, right? So maybe you can get a bigger picture of what I'm saying when I'm talking about AI, foreign influencers influencing what's inside, and also dealing domestically, right? So when you think about the Olympics, right, you got every nation, all these nations come together. We're going to just use one example, track and field, to keep it simple, right? So you got all these nations. You're looking at your favorite people, Shakari, TT Terry, you looking at all your favorite people, right? But you got all these nations who come together. You got the Jamaicans, you got all the different people who come together and they're competing. So in a fair competition, that's what you're looking at on the screen in the Olympics. When you look at unfair competition, you're looking at all the things that go on behind closed doors to try to make people lose and not be at their best and not be their optimum. Remember, when the lights, camera, action is on, everybody acting right. When that camera ain't on, we don't know what's going on. You know that in your personal life, right? But think about the Olympics. So all these people coming together, all these nations coming together, and only one can win. And not only that, also in the Olympics, you got inside the Americans competing against each other, or the Jamaicans are competing for their medal against each other. So it's not just nation, it's also peer to peer or person to person. And all of this competition is going on. Like I said, on a good level, that's good. But when you're dealing with things that can be detrimental because people have ill will intention, that is a whole nother story. Now I want you to apply that to what we're talking about right now. You understand what I'm saying? People trying to influence Americans to war against each other in such a way that they are so distracted, fighting against each other, believing stuff that's not true, causing warfare so someone can be benefited. And that someone that's being benefited is not you. Manipulation does not benefit you. It benefits the manipulator. Do you understand that? So keep that in mind, okay? Now, you know this is education for our elevation. So layer number 1, financial influence. Who is funding the narrative? So guys, when you coming up against information, all kind of political information, corporate information, it don't matter. Who's funding it? Find out who's funding it. Number 2, because that's going to lead you to some stuff. You're going to say, oh, these people are funding it. And then you get to see what their belief systems are, who they are. And then you get to see, okay, what's really going to be behind the closed doors sometimes, right? Number 2, narrative framing. How are they framing the message that they're giving to you? Is the message truthful? Is it just emotional? Is it factual? Is it something that helps you gain insight? Or is it just something that needs for you to do something and wants you to do something, but it's not going to benefit you in the end? Number 3, visual reinforcement. Like I said earlier, you hear all these voices, right? And you're trying to make a decision. You're trying to like, okay, all these voices. This person say do this one say do that, this one say do that. Dang, and you can't even get in touch with yourself because all those voices trying to choke you up. Same way with visual reinforcement. All those visuals, especially when it's manipulation, it increases distrust. It increases division. It increases emotional craziness. You understand that? It really does. It really does. I want to stop for a bit and remind you that this is TCLN Network, but I also love and enjoy bringing clarity and information to people's dreams, goals, projects, whatever they're trying to achieve. And if you're one of those persons that you're trying to get something off the ground, or maybe you just in stuck mode because you're trying to figure out, I have all these ideas, but I just don't know which one to begin with or which way to go, I would love for you to check out my TCLN Clarity Intensive. The link is right there in the description below if you are watching by YouTube. If you are watching by Austin Public, fret not. Just go over to YouTube, subscribe, stay informed, so that way you will always know when Austin Public is airing, and you will always know when YouTube videos are dropping. Stay informed. Stay informed. Now let's apply this to leadership lens very, very quickly. What happens to a society when they lose confidence in truth? So when people lose confidence in truth, what do you feel happen? I would love for you to put it in the comments below. So let's just say we living as a world together and everybody just starts losing trust. Trust in politicians, trust in family, trust in self, trust in God, just trust in everything. What happens to a society? I'm going to name some things, but I would love to hear your input. So some of the things I want to name: when leaders and citizens cannot verify images, trust institutions, understand funding pipelines. In other words, where the money coming from, because it's going to lead to who's doing what, right? And what the motives and means are. Decision making becomes degradable. It starts degrading because you can't get in touch with wisdom and understanding. And citizens begin to be misled and start making choices that are not sound. That don't just go for the citizens, that go for politicians, that go for everyone. It's all about clarity, acting on that clarity. That brings power. That power turns into responsibility. That responsibility turns into building better systems. And that's what we want to do. That's what we want to do. Not just in our personal life, but everywhere, guys. Everywhere. Everywhere. And in order to do that, we got to stop listening to manipulation all the time. The more you allow manipulation to just be a little of nothing, the more it becomes you. You understand that? You don't want to do that. You want to have that mind on saying, what is the framing? What is the narrative? What is really going on? You want to have that thinking cap on, okay? I'm going to give you a few knowledge, key insights, and we're going to be out of here. This is a short one, but it's a good one. It's a reminder. See, it's not about manipulation. Oh, don't tell me about manipulation. It's about sometimes we just need to be reminded, right? We do, all of us. Always trace where the funding is. In the organization, whether it speaks loud, whether it's quiet, whether it's secretive, it doesn't matter. Trace where the funding come from if you can. Number 2, treat viral images as allegations. If you don't have the facts, you don't have the data, just treat it as an allegation until you do. You understand what I'm saying? Make sure you check the source of origin. Is it reputable? Is it true? If you can't find it, then hey, I always live by this principle. If I wasn't there, I don't know. You understand what I'm saying? I just don't know. Number 3, separate emotion from evidence. So we love all our favorite people, right? Favorite singers, favorite politicians, favorite this, favorite that. Everybody got their favorites. You understand what I'm saying? Whatever your favorites are. It could be favorite books, favorite authors, favorite whatever. Remember, stimuli comes to us in books, magazines, everything you would think of. Separate emotion, how you feel, what you've been through, because we love to relate. I've been through this, you've been through that. Bam, 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 bam. I say that all the time on TikTok and YouTube. People start off with that emotional stuff, and baby, you will get caught up, and before you know it, you'll be like, oh, this somebody with some daggone psychic cards and this and that. Child, I'm not into that. I don't want all of that. You understand what I'm saying? So you have to really what? Listen. And you have to really pay attention, because people love to grab you with what you've been through, and they can connect you to, oh, you've been through this. I done automatically grabbed you in. I done automatically got your attention. But no, you want to pay attention. You understand what I'm saying? Some things, or whatever your principles or values are, some things you want in your life and some things you don't. It just depends on who you are. You understand that? Depends on who you are. Also, strengthen local trust. A lot of times we watch a lot of stuff on TV, we watch internet, we watch YouTube, we watch all this stuff. We listen to our favorite influencers, all that. But go back to local journalism and community verification, right? What do I mean by that? So on these big platforms, on news media, all of that, everybody has commentary. Everybody telling you their opinions, right? But when you look at your local outlets, ABC, this and this and that, your neighborhood channel 4, if you're in Dallas, your number 2, if you're in this place or whatever, right? They are basically not designed to do a lot of commentary. They are designed to give you the facts, give you the information. Make sure you're fact checking with them, because that's what they're designed to do. Everybody want to be commentary these days, which is good, because people love to give their own personal opinion on stuff, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's something wrong with it, though, when people start manipulating it to control you to get what they want, or to get you to do what they want you to do. That's when something becomes wrong with it, okay? So remember that. The truth is the truth. Nations that weaken their own people, keep them docile and under control, inevitably weaken and destroy themselves. A nation is only as good as its people. There is a lot of manipulation in American leadership. from churches to social programs to educational institutions, corporations, politics, you name it. I had to write this down, guys. I had to put my notes down because I'll forget, right? Your goal is to be the person that stays aware and alert, especially if you my TCLN thinkers, movers, and shakers. We don't play over here, baby. We don't just consume news. No, we take news and we elevate, okay? News elevation. To understand why is it being used, to see who is benefiting. Because if you're not the beneficiary, somebody's benefiting. Last but not least, and we are out of here. This ain't about fear, guys. This is about awareness. You are not powerless. Sometimes we just get misled. We're not powerless people. We just get misled sometimes. And clarity restores power. And if we want a strong America, strong communities, be strong people, we must be disciplined consumers of narratives that are coming at us, right? We gotta be. Now, if you are a thinker and you like to think deep and you want to be able to lead better and stop being manipulated by headlines and images, you understand what I'm saying? Go ahead and subscribe to TCLN Network. Hey, it's not going to hurt you. It's not going to harm you. It's going to elevate you, right? Go ahead and subscribe. Get everybody you know to subscribe. Bring it in a community of people. We want to take this news and we want to make some good news out of it, right? We don't want all that negative stuff. This is news education for our elevation, leadership development for our futures, and sustainable solutions for our dreams, goals, and enterprises. To get your vision off the ground, if you're somebody who's struggling and you want to get your goals, get your dreams, get your ideas up off the ground, and you just kind of got all this stuff going on, maybe a lot of distractions, contact me. The link is below, the TCLN Clarity Intensive. I will lead you from concept all the way to your first action plan to get you started and to get you some results that you need right now. I'm telling you, it's going to make you smile. If you've been one of them people, you just been lingering, it's going to get you smiling. Your soul is going to smile. I want to close out by reminding you, manipulation is not something to play with. I want to remind, especially those who like to live from a spiritual perspective, I want to take you back to Eve in the garden. I want to remind you of something. When the serpent came to deceive Eve, Eve knew that he was being deceptive. You want to know how? Because she repeated back what God said. She said, no, God said this. So she could tell that he was off, right? But you want to know where the serpent got her? The serpent got her when he flattered her. When he sat there and he manipulated her and flattered her and said, what you don't know is this. God is holding out something on you, baby girl. Because God knows that if you go over there and you do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, guess what's going to happen? You going to be just like God. Well, God had already told them that they are made in the image of God. You didn't need to go break the law. You didn't need to go sin. You didn't need to go eat of the fruit of good and evil and sin and mixed perversion for you to be like God. You were already made in the image of God. So through that manipulation, they were tricked out of what was rightfully theirs. Americans, if you are not careful, you are being tricked out of what is rightfully yours. And manipulation, flattery, deception, all of that is that tool. All of those little tools come up under the umbrella of manipulation, or shall I say deceit. You guys be blessed. And as the famous former CBS reporter and anchorman Dan Rather would say, courage, my friends, courage. I'll see you next week.
Thank you for tuning into TCLN Network, Austin Public. TCLN Network is independently produced by Abike Media Productions. To support TCLN Network financially, visit paypal.me/TCLN Network. Also, TCLN Channel Podcasts. To learn more about TCLN Network, visit thecreativeleadershipnetwork.com and follow on all socials, TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram at Abike Media Works.